Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Smackdown and AEW Rampage review. Smackdown tonight was from the Mohegan Sun Arena at Casey Plaza in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, while Rampage was taped from the Viejas Arena in San Diego, California. And Smackdown tonight, I thought it was a very mid-show in my opinion. It was boring. We celebrated Roman Reigns' 1,000 days as the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. And there was all this talk earlier in the day of WWE giving Roman a new undisputed WWE Universal Championship, which we got tonight. They unveiled the new title, and oh God. Just wait until what I gotta say when I get up to talking about that. Oh my God. But tonight on SmackDown, we had a six-man tag. We had Austin Theory and Pretty Deadly, Cringe Deadly as I would call them. I'm not a fan of Pretty Deadly. And they end up taking on the Brawling Brutes, Sheamus, Ridge Holland, and Butch. We had Gallows and Anderson end up taking on Hit Row, Ashante the Adonis, and Top Dollar. We had two Money in the Bank qualifying matches. The first one was a women's Money in the Bank qualifying match where Zelina Vega ended up taking on Lacey Evans. And for the men, LA Knight versus Montez Ford, Money in the Bank qualifying match. And pretty much, that was SmackDown tonight. Overall, just a very mid-show it was. Just boring show SmackDown was. But before I get into the review, if you guys haven't checked out my previous video that I uploaded earlier today, did a movie review of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I'm going to attempt to hopefully review all of the Indiana Jones films, going from, Raiders of the Lost Ark to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull up until Dial of Destiny comes out at the end of the month. So hopefully I get a chance to review, those films until, the new movie comes out. So we'll see. But check out my review of Raiders of the Lost Ark if you guys haven't seen it. Just a classic film, one of the greatest, films ever made. But anyways, let's jump right into the review. So, SmackDown opened up tonight with a video package showcasing the 1,000 days of Roman Reigns as the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. Paul Heyman ended up narrating the video package. It showcased Roman's victories, and it shows the plethora of Hall of Famers that Roman Reigns has passed in terms of numbers. And Roman Reigns' reign as the undisputed WWE Universal Champion is the longest reign in WWE in nearly 40 years, according to Triple H, which he stated later on as he presented the new undisputed WWE Universal Championship to Roman. So we just saw this video package. It was a nice little video package showcasing Roman's 1,000 days as champion. So then we saw Roman Reigns, a video of Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan and Edge, where Roman Reigns ended up pinning both Daniel Bryan and Edge to retain the WWE Universal Championship at WrestleMania 37, in 2021. So we saw that. So then we saw Austin Theory. Austin Theory, the United States Champion, was in the ring. Theory ended up welcoming everyone to Austin Theory Live. So the crowd ended up booing him. Theory ended up saying that they don't need the attitude because tonight is a special night. He ended up saying this is the celebration of your tribal chief, Roman Reigns' historic title reign. So Theory ended up saying what would be even better is if you took Roman's title reign and combined it with the greatest United States champion of all time's title reign. To which Theory ended up saying you'd have 1,209 days. He ended up saying that is impressive and inspiring. And that's almost as inspiring as being the guy that beat John Cena at WrestleMania. So Theory ended up saying that he will have a 1,000-day celebration for his United States Championship. Maybe a 2,000 or 3,000-day reign. I highly doubt Austin Theory will get to 2,000 or 3,000-day reign as the United States Champion. So Theory ended up saying that if they keep giving him guys like Sheamus, he'll be United States Champion forever. He stated that he's only 25 and that it is so great. Theory ended up saying when you're this good, everyone gravitates to you. So Theory ended up welcoming Pretty Deadly to the ring. So Pretty Deadly, Kit Wilson, Elton Prince end up coming out. Cringe Deadly. Like I said, I'm not a fan of Pretty Deadly. Just not really a fan of them. So they end up coming down to the ring. Kit Wilson got on the mic. He ended up saying that they're here to tell Theory it was their pleasure to destroy those ugly gremlins, the Brawling Brutes. Elton Prince then ended up saying, unlike Sheamus, Theory is the champion that everyone deserves. He ended up saying that they want to show their appreciation in a way only they can. So the Pretty Deadly end up pointing at Theory and they end up shouting. And then the Brawling Brutes, Sheamus, Ridge Holland, and Butch made their way down to the ring. So then we had the match, which was the first match of the night, 6-man tag, Austin Theory and Pretty Deadly versus the Brawling Brutes. And this was a pretty decent 6-man tag here. Ridge Holland started off the match against Elton Prince. Prince ended up hooking a side headlock on Ridge Holland, but Holland ended up whipping Prince off, and he ended up shoulder tackling him. Ridge Holland ended up hitting an uppercut to Prince, and then he followed up with a headbutt. Ridge Holland ended up bouncing Prince off the top turnbuckle. He ended up kneeing him in the back, and he ended up throwing Prince down. So Butch tagged in. Ridge Holland then ended up lifting Elton Prince for a suplex, and Butch ended up drop kicking Prince on the way down. Prince then ended up punching back at Butch and shoved Butch into the corner. Kit Wilson blind tagged in, and he ended up hitting a running elbow to Butch. Kit Wilson ended up smothering Butch on the mat, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Butch kicked out. Wilson then applied a chin lock, and the crowd started chanting, "We want Sheamus." So Wilson and Butch ended up going back and forth into the ropes. Butch took Wilson down. Butch started stomping on Wilson's hands. Wilson ended up retreating to the corner to tag in Austin Theory. So Theory ended up looking at Sheamus. Sheamus ended up tagging in, and the crowd was on their feet. And Theory ended up retaliating, run out as SmackDown went to commercial. And then when SmackDown came back from the commercial, Elton Prince was in control of the match. He was working on Butch's neck. Theory ended up tagging in. He ended up knocking Ridge Holland off the apron. Theory started stomping Butch, ended up throwing him down. So Theory tagged in Kit Wilson. Wilson started stomping Butch and connected with an uppercut. Elton Prince tagged in. Theory then ended up holding Butch up as Kit Wilson distracted the ref. Prince then ended up stomping away at Butch. Butch soon started to fight back with some chops, but Prince ended up rocking Butch with a right hand. So Prince charged and Butch ended up booting Prince back. Butch then came off the second rope and delivered a tornado DDT to Prince. Sheamus and Theory then tagged in, so Sheamus and Theory went at it. Sheamus ended up hitting a pair of clotheslines to Theory, which Sheamus ended up following up with some more clotheslines to Theory in the corner. Sheamus then ended up pinning a power slam to Theory, and he ended up punching Pretty Deadly on the apron. Sheamus ended up going for the 10 beats of the bottom on Pretty Deadly, but Theory rolled Sheamus up, to which Sheamus kicked out at 2. Sheamus then ended up hitting Theory, Wilson, and Prince with Irish Curse backbreakers. And then the Brawling Brutes were in the ring. So we had Sheamus, Ridge Holland, and Butch all in the ring, and they ended up hitting triple white noise on Pretty Deadly and Austin Theory. Pretty cool how the Brawling Brutes end up hitting a triple white noise to, Theory and Pretty Deadly. So Sheamus got fired up. He ended up hitting Theory with the bro kick, and Pretty Deadly immediately pulled Austin Theory out of the ring. Sheamus went up to the top rope. Ridge Holland ended up wiping out Pretty Deadly at ringside. Sheamus then ended up hitting Pretty Deadly with a double clothesline off the top rope out to the floor. And then Butch ended up taking out Pretty Deadly with a moonsault block to the outside, which was good. And then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Butch ended up hitting Prince with a German suplex. He then flattened Kit Wilson in Theory with some enziguris. Holland ended up tagging in. Butch ended up hitting an assisted slam on Prince. Sheamus then tagged in, ended up hitting a top rope diving knee to Prince, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Prince ended up kicking out. Sheamus ended up setting Prince up for the Celtic Cross, but Prince ended up getting out of that. Prince then booted Sheamus back and tagged Kit Wilson in. Theory then tagged in. Pretty Deadly ended up hitting a catapult codebreaker to Sheamus. Theory then ended up hitting a torture rack bomb to Sheamus, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Sheamus kicked out. So Sheamus got back up. He ended up hitting the clothesline to Theory. Ridge Holland ended up sending Prince flying with a belly-to-belly suplex. Wilson ended up knocking Ridge Holland out of the ring. Butch ended up kicking Wilson out. So Theory ended up hitting Butch with a back body drop over the top rope. Sheamus then hit Theory with a run knee, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Theory ended up kicking out. So Prince and Holland ended up tagging in. Ridge Holland ended up lifting both members of Pretty Deadly, ended up slamming them down. The Brawling Brutes then ended up trapping Theory and Pretty Deadly on the apron. And the Brawling Brutes ended up hitting a trifecta of 10 beats of the Bodhrans to Theory and Pretty Deadly. Ridge Holland ended up slamming Wilson down. He ended up going for the cover, and Theory broke up the pin. Theory hit Butch with the 8-town down. Sheamus then clotheslined Theory over the top rope. Theory quickly sent Sheamus into the ring post. Prince ended up covering his face with the ring apron, and he was trying to trick Ridge Holland. Wilson then chop blocked Ridge Holland. Then Pretty Deadly ended up hitting Ridge Holland with the split milk, and they tagged in Austin Theory. Theory came in, and he went for the cover on Ridge Holland. So there you go. Austin Theory and Pretty Deadly ended up winning the match. Overall, this was a decent 6-man tag here. These guys, did good in the match. All 6 of these guys. But still, not a huge fan of Pretty Deadly. They're very cringe. And then we got a video package where we saw Jimmy Uso end up super kicking Roman Reigns at Night of Champions, which Jimmy ended up kicking Roman twice, to which led to Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn retain their undisputed WWE Tag Team Championship against Sikoa and Roman Reigns, which we all knew Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn were going to retain the titles. So we saw Paul Heyman. He was walking backstage with the undisputed WWE Universal Championship over his shoulders, and he walked into the Tribal Chiefs locker room. And then SmackDown went to commercial. Then when SmackDown came back from the commercial, Paul Heyman was talking to Sikoa backstage. He was talking to him about how he wants tonight to be special for the Tribal Chief, especially after what happened at Night of Champions. Paul Heyman ended up saying that he's going to talk to Adam Pearce to make sure Sikoa's brothers, the Usos, are nowhere to be seen. He ended up saying that this is the night we acknowledge the tribal chief. Sikoa didn't even say a word, and then Paul Heyman ended up walking off. But you all know when they say, oh, the Usos will be nowhere to be seen, you know that the Usos are going to be there. You know that the Usos are coming. And then we saw a video that was shown from earlier in the day with AJ Styles hanging out with the OC, with Karl Anderson, Luke Gallows, and Mia Yim. And happy birthday to AJ Styles. Today, was his birthday. So Styles ended up saying that it is his birthday, and he takes responsibility for not winning the World Heavyweight Championship. Styles ended up saying that he wants to see Karl Anderson and Luke Gallows take out Hit Row. So pretty much, that was that. And then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, we had another video where we saw Roman Reigns, defeating Brock Lesnar in the Last Man Standing match at SummerSlam last year, where Roman Reigns ended up retaining the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. That was when Lesnar ended up driving the tractor towards the ring, and he lifted up the ring. So that was pretty cool. Last year at SummerSlam, it was a good moment. And then we had the OC, Karl Anderson and Luke Gallows versus Hit Row, Ashanti the Adonis, and Top Dollar. Of course, the OC, accompanied by Styles and Mia Yim, and B-Fab accompanied Ashanti the Adonis and Top Dollar. And this was just a very meh match, in my opinion. Ashanti the Adonis and Karl Anderson start off the match, and Ashanti ended up immediately flooring Karl Anderson, started stomping away at him. Ashanti ended up hitting Anderson with a back elbow, and he shouted at Luke Gallows. Top Dollar ended up tagging in. He ended up whipping Ashanti the Adonis into Karl Anderson in the corner. Top Dollar ended up hitting a short arm back elbow to Anderson, and he was taunting the crowd. Top Dollar choked Karl Anderson on the ropes and tagged Ashanti back in. Ashanti ended up hitting an avalanche, which was very weak, in my opinion. So he avalanched Karl Anderson into the ropes. B-Fab then whiffed on a cheap shot as the referee was distracted. She ended up throwing a punch at Karl Anderson. So Ashanti ended up going for the cover, to which Anderson ended up kicking out. Ashanti ended up applying a chinlock on Anderson, and Styles and Mia Yim end up backing B-Fab away on the outside. Karl Anderson started fighting back at Ashanti. He ended up hitting a spinning spine buster to Ashanti. Gallows ended up taking in. Gallows ended up delivering a big boot to Ashanti, and then he ended up kicking Top Dollar off the apron. Gallows knocked Ashanti back to the corner for a running elbow, which he followed up by a leaping back elbow. Gallows ended up hitting a slam to Ashanti, and he ended up tagging in Karl Anderson. Gallows and Anderson then went for the Magic Killer on Ashanti, and he ended up going for the cover. And there you go. The OC, Luke Gallows and Karl Anderson ended up winning the match. Immediately post-match, after the bell rang, Top Dollar ended up hitting a hideous big boot on Karl Anderson, and he ended up knocking Gallows out of the ring. Styles then took out Top Dollar with the phenomenal forearm, and the OC ended up celebrating the ring. The crowd was chanting happy birthday to Styles, and that was basically that. Overall, meh match this was. Surprised that Hit Row didn't come out wearing their masks like they did last week. Last week, all three of Hit Row, were wearing these masks looking like they were going to rob a bank. But like I said, meh match this was. And then we had Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce was shown talking on the phone backstage. Paul Heyman ended up walking up to Adam Pearce. Pearce ended up saying to Paul Heyman that he's already double security to prevent the Usos from coming in. So Paul Heyman looked pleased at what Adam Pearce told him. And so Paul Heyman ended up calling the tribal chief, Roman Reigns. He takes his phone and goes, "Call Roman Reigns." And pretty much that was that. And then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, they ended up announcing that this Monday on Raw, it's going to be Seth Rollins defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Damian Priest. So that should be a pretty good match there. But we all know that Seth Rollins is going to retain. But still, it could be a good match. And then we had Grayson Waller. Grayson Waller was out there. It's the Grayson Waller effect, his talk show, because Vince McMahon loves his talk shows. So Grayson Waller, he got a huge introduction. Grayson Waller ended up saying that he always brings the biggest stars to the show. And tonight is no different. So Grayson Waller introduced his guest on the Grayson Waller effect. And his guest was the Raw Women's Champion, Asuka. Now I'm like, why is Asuka on SmackDown when she's a Raw superstar? So Asuka ended up making her way down to the ring. Of course, Asuka beat Bianca Belair last Saturday at Night of Champions to win the Raw Women's Championship. And, Bianca held that Raw Women's Championship for 419 days. So we saw, video, with Asuka beating Bianca at Night of Champions to win the Raw Women's Championship because Asuka ended up rubbing the blue mist in Bianca's eyes. So we saw that. And then Asuka was liking the footage. She was laughing at that. And she kept shouting that she is the Raw Women's Champion. And of course, she was dancing around. And before she stated that she's the Raw Women's Champion, she was speaking in, of course, Japanese. The Raw Women's Champion. And then Grayson Waller ended up saying that he couldn't have said it better himself. He kept saying he can't help but notice the Money in the Bank briefcases hanging above the ring. He kept saying that there is no shortage of women that think they can cash in on Asuka. He kept saying that it's also only a matter of time before Bianca comes looking for the Raw Women's Championship. So Asuka ended up shouting. Grayson Waller ended up laughing. Asuka's teeth were blue from the mist. She had the blue mist on her hand a little bit. And then Io Sky ended up coming out. Io Sky made her way down to the ring, speaking Japanese. Asuka got to her feet, and Asuka ended up shouting back at Io. They ended up going back and forth, shouting at each other, until Bayley made her way down to the ring. Bayley ended up saying, what Io is saying is after they both qualify for Money in the Bank, even though it's every woman for herself, and that she has won in the past. She ended up saying that a member of Damage Control will win the briefcase and become champion. So then Shotzi came out. Shotzi ended up saying that she wants to crush Bayley's dreams with cold, hard steel. She ended up saying that if anyone has been made for the pure chaos of Money in the Bank, it's her. And then Lacey Evans ended up coming out. Lacey Evans, she's trying so hard to be the female Sergeant Slaughter. So Lacey Evans ended up saying that Shotzi needs to salute her and that the briefcase is coming home with her. Lacey ended up saying first she needs to take her Cobra clutch and wrap it around that shrimp, Zelina Vega. Man, what this whole segment was fucking awful. Absolutely awful. It's a jumbled fucking mess. So then Zelina Vega came out. Zelina Vega ended up saying that they're all underestimating her. She ended up saying that Rhea Ripley did that at Backlash. And Zelina Vega ended up saying that she was close to defeating Rhea Ripley to becoming champion. Zelina Vega ended up telling Lacey Evans to keep that energy all night. Zelina Vega ended up saying that Lacey is not half the woman she is. So Zelina Vega ended up begging the woman to underestimate her because it will be that much sweeter when she is victorious in her match and become Miss Money in the Bank. So all the women were arguing. Grayson Waller ended up saying, "Oh, this is the best night of my life." And then Asuka was at the top of, the ramp. Asuka ended up shouting, "No one is ready for Asuka!" And all of a sudden, Bianca Belair ended up turning Asuka around. Bianca Belair started brawling with Asuka. Officials and refs ended up pulling Bianca and Asuka apart, but Bianca ended up breaking free. She ended up going after Asuka again. Asuka then pulled the braid of Bianca Belair before the refs and officials end up pulling her away from Bianca, and pretty much that was basically that. Terrible, awful, cringe segment this was. And I'm like, we're still not done with this Bianca and Asuka feud? God, move on. So then we saw Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce was with Cameron Grimes to the moon. And they were watching the footage from NXT where Baron Corbin came to NXT attacking Carmelo Hayes, who was the NXT champion. And Baron Corbin, he's a free agent. He could go anywhere. He could go to Raw, SmackDown, NXT. So what are we going to get? We're going to be getting Corbin versus Carmelo Hayes? God. So Cameron Grimes ended up telling Adam Pearce that he'll handle Corbin the next time he is on SmackDown. So that was that. Then we had Zelina Vega versus Lacey Evans, Money in the Bank qualifying match. This match lasted 3 minutes. So Zelina Vega ended up winning the match. Zelina ended up hitting the code red to Lacey Evans, and that was that. I don't really need to go over this match because nothing happened. 3 minutes this match went. Moving on. We saw a video of when Roman Reigns defeated Sami Zayn at Elimination Chamber in February, where he ended up retaining the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. So we end up seeing that. And then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, we saw the LWO, the Latino World Order. They were backstage with Zelina Vega. Santos Escobar congratulated Zelina Vega, ended up saying that they'll both win Money in the Bank. So then Rey Mysterio ended up saying that it's only a matter of time before the locker room addresses Santos and Zelina as Mr. and Mrs. Money in the Bank. And of course, Santos Escobar will be in a Money in the Bank qualifying match next week on SmackDown, where he will be facing Mustafa Ali. And Mustafa Ali also was on NXT this past Tuesday. So we have Mustafa Ali and Baron Corbin coming down to NXT this past Tuesday. So, obviously Santos Escobar will win the match next week on SmackDown. Mustafa Ali, nothing but a jobber. And it's sad. Guy is talented, Mustafa Ali. And look at how WWE is booking him to be a loser. And then we had the second Money in the Bank qualifying match. Montez Ford versus LA Knight. LA Knight is so over with the crowd. And you could see a little bit of Montez Ford, teasing, a heel turn, a possible future heel turn in him here. Because the crowd was all for LA Knight in the match. Whenever Montez Ford was, doing a move on LA Knight, throwing punches or anything at LA Knight, the crowd was booing him because they were all for LA Knight. So the match started with LA Knight getting the better of Montez Ford. Ford ended up fighting back, ended up slapping Knight on the back of his head. So Montez Ford ended up shoulder tackling Knight and ended up going back and forth into the ropes. Ford ended up hitting a drop kick to Knight. Ford ended up knocking Knight around. He ended up clotheslining Knight in the corner. So we had the crowd end up chanting for LA Knight. Ford ended up punching Knight back, but Knight came back and knocked Ford off the apron. And as SmackDown came back from the commercial, we had Montez Ford end up taking LA Knight down with a clothesline, and then Ford delivered a back suplex to Knight. Ford ended up going for a standing moonsault, but ended up rolling through when Knight moved out of the way. Knight ended up hitting the torch rack neck breaker to Ford, to which he ended up going for the cover, and Ford kicked out. Ford ended up knocking Knight back. Knight ended up quickly elbowing Ford down. Knight ended up going for a springboard moonsault off the top rope, but Ford ended up moving out of the way. Ford ended up hitting a rock bottom to Knight, to which Ford ended up going for the cover, and Knight kicked out. Ford ended up sending Knight into the ropes. He ended up lowering his head, and he ended up eating the kick from Knight. So both guys ended up taking each other out with double clotheslines. Both guys ended up trading blows from their knees. Ford ended up headbutting Knight, to which Knight ended up sending Ford to the apron. Ford kicked Knight in the face. Ford went to the top rope, and Knight ended up cutting Ford off. Ford fought back at Knight, and he ended up headbutting Knight. Ford ended up going for the frog splash, and Knight moved out of the way. Knight ended up going for the BFT, but Ford ended up getting out and rolled Knight up. Knight ended up rolling through, and he ended up grabbing the ropes. And there you go. LA Knight ended up winning the match. He qualifies for Money in the Bank. He's going to be in the Money in the Bank match. All thanks to him grabbing the ropes and the ref never seeing it. So post-match, Knight pulled out a ladder from under the ring. He set up the ladder in the center of the ring. He ended up climbing the ladder. He posed under the Money in the Bank briefcases. So now Knight is joining Ricochet and Nakamura, of course, in the men's Money in the Bank. But overall, it was a pretty good match here from Knight and Montez Ford. So then we saw Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. There was this, creepy video for them, for the, they're the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions. And at first I'm like, oh, is this going to be the return of Bray Wyatt? But no, it was for Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. So it was a pretty cool, little video for them. And then we saw the video of Roman beating Cody to retain the undisputed WWE Universal Championship at WrestleMania this year, to which Cody should have won the match. If Cody won the match, he would be, the undisputed WWE Universal Championship, and we would not have a World Heavyweight Championship. So WWE made that mess on their own. But they end up saying next week on SmackDown, we're going to be having 4 Money in the Bank qualifying matches. Here are the 4 matches that we're going to see next week on SmackDown. Butch versus Baron Corbin. Yawn. We all know that Butch is going to win that match because Money in the Bank is in his home country. Santos Escobar versus Mustafa Ali. Obviously, Santos Escobar will win it. Medium versus Bayley. I have to say that Bayley will win the match. And Shotzi versus Io Sky. Obviously, in my opinion, I think Io Sky will win it. So I think Bayley and Io Sky Both of them will be, in Money in the Bank. So those are the 4 Money in the Bank qualifying matches that we're going to be seeing next week on SmackDown. And then we had Triple H. Triple H came down to the ring. This was, Roman Reigns' 1,000 days as champion celebration. So there was a table in the ring. We had a title belt covered by a black cloth. Triple H got on the mic. He ended up saying that on rare occasions, an athlete comes around that is so dominant that they change the face of the sport. He ended up saying when they happen, they're talked about for generations to come. In boxing, it was Muhammad Ali. In basketball, it was Michael Jordan. In WWE, we have the pleasure of witnessing it live. Triple H ended up saying that this man has passed 1,000 days as champion, and that this is a man they'll tell their grandchildren about. So Triple H ended up introducing the undisputed WWE Universal Champion, the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns. So Roman Reigns ended up coming out. He was accompanied by the wise man, Paul Heyman, and the enforcer, Sol Sikoa. This is 1,006th day that Roman Reigns is champion. So it was said that 3 weeks from tomorrow, Reigns will pass Pedro Morales to go to 4th on the all-time list. So they're saying that 3 men that would be ahead of him are Bob Backlund, Hulk Hogan, and Bruno Sammartino. So Triple H ended up congratulating the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns on surpassing 1,000 days as champion, something that hasn't happened in WWE in nearly 40 years. So Triple H ended up saying to help celebrate this achievement, he is going to present Roman Reigns with a brand new, undisputed WWE Universal Championship. Triple H then revealed the new belt and he handed it to Roman, which that new belt is ugly looking. That new undisputed WWE Universal Championship is ugly looking. It's lazy. It's generic. It was just gold yellow. It looks like, a copy of the WWE Championship. That's all it was. Instead of it being blue. Just very lazy, very generic. It's awful looking. Call it the undisputed WWE Universal Cheese Belt. So that's what it looked like. It looked like fucking cheese, with the gold yellow. Called the Cheese Belt. So Paul Heyman looked moved by the title. I'm like, why would you look impressed by the title? It's fucking ugly. So Reigns held up the new title. Fireworks started going off. Reigns then showed the title off to Sol Sikoa. Triple H then strapped that ugly looking title around Reigns' waist. Reigns ended up holding the hand out. And Paul Heyman ended up handing Reigns the mic. Reigns ended up saying, Pencil, no. That's not enough anymore. He ended up saying, the entire universe acknowledge me. So the crowd there ended up booing Roman. And the Usos end up coming out. Jimmy and Jay walked out to the stage. Reigns looked furious. And he shouted at Paul Heyman, wow, some good security that Adam Pearce ended up telling Paul Heyman, oh, I doubled security. Yeah, look how that turned out. So the Usos, made their way down. As SmackDown came back from the commercial, Roman Reigns was face-to-face with Jimmy Uso. Reigns stared coldly at his cousin. Jay was looking anxious. He was pacing the corner. Reigns looked over at Jay. Reigns ended up telling Jay to kick Jimmy in the face. Jay didn't do anything. Reigns repeated himself. He ended up saying that he didn't stutter before he ended up repeating the order to Jay to kick Jimmy in the face. He ended up saying that Jimmy kicked him in the face and took his tag team championship away from him. Reigns shouted to Jay to kick Jimmy in the face right now, and Jay was pacing, but he didn't kick Jimmy. Jimmy continued to stand tall, and he didn't even flinch. Reigns angrily stared at Jimmy. Reigns ended up saying that he won't say this again, and that Jay needs to kick Jimmy in the face and fix this right now. Jimmy ended up saying that the only thing that needs fixing is Roman, is him. And Jay ended up saying that he cannot fix this. He ended up saying that Jimmy is the one that kicked Reigns in the face. And that was the kick heard round the world. Jimmy ended up saying that he did what he did in Saudi, not to be the tribal chief or leave the bloodline. And that he did it because he's a brother. And brothers treat each other with love and respect. He ended up saying lately, Reigns hasn't been such a good brother. He was like, what kind of brother manipulates, betrays, hurts, and beats down his family? So he ended up saying that Jay is his brother. It's embedded in him to protect him. He ended up saying that Solo Sikoa is his brother. Jimmy ended up telling Sikoa that Reigns will soon start abusing him and use him up before kicking him to the curb. So Jimmy ended up imploring Sikoa to listen to him. So the crowd was chanting Uso. Reigns ended up saying they're chanting their name because of him. He's the tribal chief, and Jimmy is an imposter, talking for everyone like he is a leader. He ended up saying that they need to hear from Solo to hear who he runs with around here. Reigns then handed Sikoa the mic. Sikoa picked up the mic, and he ended up saying, I acknowledge you, my tribal chief. And I'm like, wow, so Sikoa speaks. Because we all know that Sikoa, he never speaks. So he ended up saying, but these two right here, they're my brothers. So Reigns did not look happy. Paul Heyman couldn't believe what Sikoa just said. Sikoa walked over to Jimmy and Jay. He ended up standing beside them. And I'm like, okay, this is a swerve by Solo here. He's going to turn on Jimmy and Jay. So Jimmy ended up asking what it's going to be. Does he want to run this thing together with respect? Or is he going to be on the island of relevancy as a tribal chief all by himself? Reigns then shouted at Jimmy to shut his mouth, but Jimmy shoved Reigns back in the face. Jimmy then shouted at Reigns. The crowd couldn't believe it. The crowd was chanting, holy shit, to which it got censored, of course. Reigns then approached Jimmy. Jay stepped in between them. Jay ended up saying that it can't end like this. So then Jay ended up shouting that he needs Reigns, and they cannot fight like this, and that they're better than that. They're family. Jimmy then ended up saying that Jay is right, and that they're stronger together. So Jimmy ended up saying that Jay is his brother, Solo is his brother, and so is Reigns. He ended up saying that he's always been his brother. He was like, let's have respect and run this damn place like they've been doing together. They're the bloodline. They're family. And that they're still the ones. So Jimmy ended up asking if Reigns agrees. Reigns then started rubbing his face. Reigns was becoming emotional and he was tearing up. Reigns then ended up grabbing Jimmy and he embraced Jimmy. Jay ended up looking relieved. Reigns looked up and then said no. So Jay couldn't believe it. Solo Sikoa then turned Jimmy around. He ended up hitting Jimmy with the Samoan spike. Jimmy ended up gasping for air. Jay ended up checking on Jimmy. And then Reigns and Heyman left the ring. Sikoa looked down at his brothers. Jimmy ended up sitting up. He looked furious with Sakura. Sakura then walked off, and he ended up joining REIGNS. So as they stood on the ramp, Paul Heyman ended up saying, "Tribal Chief, what about Jay?" REIGNS ended up saying that Jay will do what he always does, fall in line. REIGNS ended up saying that he'll come home. And that was how SmackDown went off the air. Overall, this was a very good segment here. But aside from that hideous, awful-looking new undisputed WWE Universal Championship, the Bloodline storyline is still the best thing going in WWE currently. But obviously, I knew that Sakura was going to set up the Usos. So, look, are we going to be getting the tag team? I think it's going to be leading to a tag team match with the Usos versus Sakura and Roman Reigns. So I know that they're going to possibly do that. But overall, really enjoyed this segment. This was very good. This was good television here. But overall, SmackDown was just a very mid-show, in my opinion. Moving on to AEW Rampage, which Rampage was an okay show tonight. There was titles on the line tonight. We had the AAA Mega Championship on the line, where El Hijo del Vikingo defended the title against Komander and Dralistico. The New Japan World Television Championship was on the line, where Zack Sabre Jr. defended the title against Action Andretti. And the New Japan Strong Women's Championship was on the line, where Will Nightingale defended the title against Amy Sakura. And the main event, the Ring of Honor Pure Championship was on the line. Katsuyori Shibata defended the title against Lee Moriarty. But, it was an okay, Rampage tonight, with titles on the line. It was Championship Friday on Rampage. But Rampage opened up with the AAA Mega Championship on the line. This was a three-way. El Hijo del Vikingo versus Dralistico and Komander. And this was a pretty good match. The match started off with Komander and Dralistico double teaming on Vikingo. Komander ended up shoving both Dralistico and Vikingo. He ended up drop kicking them, and it spilled out to the outside. Dralistico tossed Komander in the barricade. Dralistico then tossed Komander back into the ring. He ended up going for the cover, and Komander ended up kicking out. Komander, of course, is just awesome. So Dralistico ended up working on Komander, and we had Vikingo end up just walking around the outside of the ring. Dralistico climbed the top rope, and he ended up landing on Komander. Vikingo then climbed to the top rope, leapt over onto Komander and Dralistico on the floor. Vikingo tossed both Dralistico and Komander back into the ring. He then ended up hitting the Phoenix Splash on Komander. He ended up going for the cover, and Dralistico broke up the pin. Vikingo and Dralistico were in the center of the ring. They were exchanging blows. Vikingo ended up hitting Dralistico with a running corkscrew kick, and Vikingo ended up going for the cover. Dralistico ended up kicking out. So then, as Rampage came back from the commercial, Dralistico and Komander were exchanging blows. Komander was on the ring apron, and he ended up dropping Dralistico. Komander then took out Vikingo with some arm drags. Komander ended up walking the top rope. He leapt high off the top. He ended up taking both Dralistico and Vikingo to the outside, which was great. I love when Komander, walks the top rope and then just does that leap off the top. Just absolutely great. Komander then ended up hitting the 450 splash on Dralistico for the cover, and Vikingo broke up the pin. Vikingo then leaped through the middle rope. He took out Komander, and Komander ended up getting put through the table, and the fans were chanting, "This is awesome." And then Vikingo ended up rolling up Dralistico for the pin. So there you go. El Hijo del Vikingo ended up winning the match, retaining the AAA Mega Championship. overall, this was a good match here. Good wrestling from these three guys. It's overall entertaining match. And then we went backstage, and Lacey Nair was interviewing Jay Lethal, Jeff Jarrett, Sanjay Dutt Satnam, and Karen Jarrett. So they ended up talking about not deserving being suspended for hitting Aubrey Edwards at Double or Nothing. So they ended up saying that Aubrey is the one that should be suspended. Mark Briscoe then ended up coming in, ended up saying that no one is going to get suspended, as he talked with Tony Khan. He ended up saying because if they are suspended, then they can't get an ass whooping they deserve. Aubrey Edwards ended up coming in. She had a Band-Aid on her head. Karen ended up saying that she sees nothing but air. So then Aubrey ended up going after Karen, and we got a brawl between the both of them. Refs end up coming in to break them up, and that was that. I don't care. I really don't care. Are we going to get Aubrey and Karen in a match? This is awful. I don't care about anything that surrounds Jay Lethal and his crew. And then we had Zack Sabre Jr. versus Action Andretti. The New Japan World Television Championship was on the line. This was a decent match here. Both guys ended up locking up. Sabre had Andretti in a headlock. Action Andretti was able to get out of the headlock. Both men ended up locking up again as Sabre ended up putting Andretti in an armbar. He ended up dropping him down to the mat. Andretti ended up reversing it, and Sabre ended up hanging on with some wrist control, which was good. Sabre had Andretti down on the mat. He was working the wrist as Andretti ended up getting up to his feet. So Andretti ended up delivering a chop to Sabre. He ended up tossing Sabre with an arm drag, which was followed up by a drop kick. Andretti ended up going for the cover, and Sabre ended up kicking out. So Sabre ended up rolling to the outside. Andretti then ended up diving over the ropes onto Sabre, who ended up hitting the barricade. Sabre ended up rolling back in the ring. Andretti ended up going on the ropes, but Sabre ended up dropping Andretti as he fell on the ropes. He then ended up dropping him in the ring on his shoulder. So Sabre ended up beginning to work on Andretti's left arm. He then followed up with a hammerlock. Sabre then ended up grabbing Andretti's arm and bends it back. He ended up stomping on it. Sabre then ended up hitting Andretti with some chops, and he grabbed Andretti's wrist again. Sabre ended up following up with some kicks on Andretti, who tried to fight back, but Sabre ended up countering and working on Andretti's arm. And Sabre ended up picking Andretti up, and he started working on Andretti's arm, and he had Andretti's arm locked. Action Andretti ended up countering, and he picked up Sabre and dropped him with a suplex. So at the end of the match, we had Sabre end up catching Andretti's arm. He ended up bending it. He then twisted with his leg, and then Action Andretti ended up submitting. So there you go. Zack Sabre Jr. ended up winning the match, retaining the New Japan Television Championship. But overall, this was a decent match here between Zack Sabre Jr. and Action Andretti. Just, very good wrestling here. Back and forth between the two guys. And then we had Will Nightingale versus Emi Sakura. This was for the New Japan Strong Women's Championship, which Will Nightingale, holds. And the match was just meh, in my opinion. Emi Sakura ended up hitting Nightingale with a shoulder tackle, which did nothing to Will Nightingale. Will then ended up trying a shoulder tackle of her own to Emi Sakura, but it did nothing to Sakura. So Nightingale then ended up hitting Sakura with another shoulder tackle off the rope, and it knocked her down. Nightingale started working on Sakura in the corner with some chops. Nightingale was on the ring apron as Sakura ended up trying to bring her back in the ring. Sakura ended up raking Willow's eyes, and then Sakura ended up knocking her down to the floor. Sakura then tossed Nightingale into the barricade and followed up with a crossbody into the barricade. So then, as Rampage came back from the commercial, Nightingale ended up turning the table and hit Sakura with a shotgun dropkick. She ended up going for the cover, and Sakura ended up kicking out. Sakura ended up coming back. She ended up dropping Nightingale, followed up with a crossbody. So Sakura ended up covering Nightingale, and Nightingale ended up kicking out. Nightingale ended up coming back with a high crossbody on Sakura. She ended up going for the cover, and Sakura ended up kicking out at 2. So at the end of the match, Nightingale ended up pinning Sakura, picked her up, and delivered a power bomb, and she ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Will Nightingale end up winning the match, retaining the New Japan Strong Women's Championship. Overall, just a very meh match it was. And then we went to the main event. Katsuyori Shibata versus Lee Moriarty for the Ring of Honor Pure Championship. Shibata, of course, is the Pure Champion. So we saw Jerry Lynn, BJ Whitmore, and Christopher Daniels. They were the judges because, they were there just in case the match went to a draw, because this was a pure rules match. Of course, the Pure Championship on the line. So on commentary, they noted that Shibata underwent brain surgery, which he had to get a blood clot removed. So the match got underway. There was a clock on the screen because, of course, pure rules match. Both men end up shaking hands. Shibata had Moriarty down on the mat. Shibata ended up working on Moriarty's arm. Moriarty ended up using a rope break, to which they could only use 3 rope breaks. So Shibata ended up locking up Moriarty. He ended up muscling him down for a cover, but Moriarty got up. He then poked Shibata in his eyes, and Moriarty started working on Shibata in the corner with some kicks. It was followed up by an elbow strike and then a drop kick to Shibata. So then, as Rampage came back from the commercial, Moriarty ended up getting to the rope. He used his second rope break. Shibata then ended up coming back with some shots to the face on Moriarty. So Moriarty ended up countering. He then dropped Shibata down, used the ridge head on Shibata, and he ended up closing his fists, which are illegal in a pure rules match. So Shibata ended up coming back. He dropped Moriarty and then ended up hitting him with a series of forearm shots to his face. And then Shibata ended up decking Moriarty in the face with a huge kick. Shibata then ended up covering Moriarty, to which Moriarty ended up kicking out at 2. And Moriarty ended up using his final rope break. Moriarty then countered. He had Shibata's head and neck locked up. And Shibata ended up coming back with a sleeper hold. He connected with a kick on Moriarty. He ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Katsuyori Shibata ended up winning the match, retaining the Ring of Honor Pure Championship. Post-match, Danny Garcia ended up coming out. He ended up staring down at Shibata. And that was how Rampage went off the air. Overall, this was a pretty good match between Shibata and Moriarty here. Pure rules match. Ring of Honor Pure Championship on the line. And who knows, this might set up with Danny Garcia coming out there. He's staring down at Shibata. This might set up Danny Garcia versus Shibata at Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor. So that's my prediction. The pay-per-view is next month in July. So this might be setting it up for that. We'll probably get Danny Garcia versus Shibata for the Ring of Honor Pure Championship at Death Before Dishonor. But Rampage, it was an okay show. But overall, that's it for my review of Smackdown and AEW Rampage. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. Be sure to check out my previous video, which was my Raiders of the Lost Ark movie review, and also check out my Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse movie review. Those 2 videos are up, so definitely check them out if you guys haven't seen them. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all later.